I'm an educator, been in education for some years, and with each passing year, I've noticed that our children are being ascribed a myriad of labels to define their learning disabilities. For example, we have children who struggle with dysgraphia, dyslexia. Some children have ADD, some have Asperger's, some have ADHD. And there are many children who are on the spectrum of autism. Okay, so when our children are being ascribed these labels, that means as educators, we have to prescribe the solution for that learning disability. And that prescription can look like some type of therapy or some type of medicine. But whatever we ascribe, then we have to prescribe. Okay, I want you to keep that in mind. Ascribe and prescribe. Let's take that reality to a bigger context. George Floyd was murdered early last week. Okay, now we have two ways to look at that murder. Only two. There is no gray. There is only two ways to look at this. Now, if you are black and an unbeliever, you are supposed to say that murder, that was all out racist, prejudice, there was clearly defiance against the Black Lives Matter movement. Oh my goodness, you're supposed to say that. If you are black and an unbeliever, you are supposed to even say, we ascribe that as killing. That was just a murder. And we know that that's because white people still think we're property. White people are so twisted. They are so just dirty. They still, okay, you're supposed to talk like that. And you are supposed to ascribe that murder with those labels. And then you're supposed to prescribe what you will do with what you have ascribed. And that prescription thus far has looked like looting, rioting, violence, assassinations, machetes, bricks being thrown in buildings. Because when the world ascribes something, then the world has to prescribe what the solution will be. Now, on the other hand, there is the other view. And that is if you are a believer and then you're black. Notice how over here I said black first, then unbeliever. On the other side, it is believer first and then black. Now, what does that mean for us? That means we do not ascribe to what the world has said, and we do not prescribe the solutions the world has offered. We say, Paul told us in Ephesians, we are not citizens of this world. We are citizens of another kingdom. We are citizens along with God's holy people. We are members of God's holy family. That means we don't think like the world. Okay. Jesus tells us in John, we, the believers, are not of this world, even as he was not of this world. Well, then what does that mean for us? Well, let's see what Paul said in Romans. Do not conform to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And that's because believers, we have been transformed out of the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of light. That means when believers who are black, when we see that video, we say, oh, that was murder. Okay, that was sin. And we ascribe that as sin because sin is spiritual. And now because we have ascribed a spiritual issue, we can prescribe a spiritual solution. Well, Anita, what is the solution? Well, one, we do not wrestle against flesh and blood. So we don't see skin and skin wrestling. We say, oh, that's spiritual. So we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world. Okay, so then we also remember that here on earth, we will have many trials and sorrows, but take heart. Jesus has overcome the world. Because the thing is, if believers ascribe to what unbelievers are saying, we'll always be victims. And we'll always need government assistance and political assistance. And we'll need the people in blue to just get it right and just get it together. That's what the world says. We are, on the other hand, say, our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So then when we prescribe a solution, first, we don't perpetuate the narrative of fear, because we know 1 John 4:18 says, perfect love cast out fear. And 2 Timothy 1:7 says, God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of love and of power and of sound mind. That's first. We don't perpetuate fear. Second, we know we do not wage war against flesh and blood. Third, we know that we pray passionately in the Spirit, as Ephesians 6 tells us, so we can constantly intercede with every form of prayer. And then lastly, we know that these are not perilous times. Quit calling it Black Lives Matter times. That's what the world describes. We know that these are perilous times, and we also know that John told us, the light shines in the darkness, but the darkness will not overcome it, because we are overcomers, because we are believers first, and then we're Black. We're not subjugated to victimization. We are subjugated to power and empowerment, and we do not suffer at the hands of what the world describes, because we are not of this kingdom. We are of another kingdom. Now, believers, act like it.